Ladies and gentlemen, what do we have going on here? We have the past, which is the Crystal Garden. We have the future, which is the New Earth, fighting for our present. That is pretty strange, isn't it? I know how strange that is. So, I'm going to talk about both. And in this particular past, I'm going to talk about the Knights Templar and what I've seen from them and how they are much more important characters than anyone could have ever imagined. And also the future and these virtual reality systems that will be operated um, not in the not too distant future from now. So let me just get let's get the virtual reality over with, because it's a little bit unpleasant to listen to. Imagine a dystopian film. There's a lot of similarities to what I saw in some of these movies. Not surprisingly, because of predictive programming and things like that. So imagine, let's just get into the details of what I saw. I'm in a city, an underground city, and I see what look like, it's like this place looked like an airport. So the first thing that comes to mind is the Denver airport. And it just really seems like very long rows of stores and very typical stuff of what you would see or think of an airport to look like. But this is an underground city, and there was these like little electric bubble cars moving about back and forth between places. And so I find myself in an auditorium with a lot of people, and there's a man there, and this man looks hardly like a man. He looks like some kind of Ken doll, artificial intelligence infused cyborg more than a man, and there's a massive screen behind him. And this audience is listening, and he presents on the screen this very advanced AI system that literally completely immerses you into a world that is fully tactile, fully sensory equivalent to our own in terms of the five senses, and virtually indistinguishable from the real world. And so he presents to us this sort of tropical paradise, right? This sort of heavenly garden. That's what I'm seeing on the screen. And how he's saying you can live again on the surface. You can experience that again. Um, and he makes it seem like it's an experiment, so it's free of charge. There's no money involved here or anything like that. He's actually trying to get people to participate in this project, right? So people jump all over it. He's showing other places too. I see some kind of city, like what you would think of as a futuristic city is supposed to look like. Basically, what this place is like super neon, like Shanghai in the future type place, and everybody's like having purple hair and all this weird futuristic mumbo jumbo. And like, he's like, you can experience any of this or be part of any of this, and it's all yours. So, what I then see is that, remember I told you about the two groups of people. One is told that the earth will not recover for millions of years. So that hopelessness would eventually just lead them to jump into the VR systems. The other group is being told that they're being sucked into a black hole, which is partially true. So both partial truths here, right? So the Earth will recover, but extremely fast, and the black hole will suck them in, but it will suck in the molecular aspects of the old dimension, not the newer one that's coming on the surface that they don't even know about because they're underground. Because who's on the surface? Only the elites and their slave class that is working to, better their lives. And so when the sun goes black, there will still be some photosynthesis taking place in some places, and on top of that, it'll be assisted by the sun simulators when there will be areas of the planet, even amidst the worst of the volcanic eruptions, the ozone holds all sorts of things that will still be able to harbor life because of advanced technology and things that they infused into that life so that they could live on the surface. Um, and so these groups, and out of sheer desperation, because living underground is depressing. It is very depressing, and people will get very depressed being underground and very sad. And this is their escape to go into fully immerse themselves in the VR. So what they do is that they go into this large room with all these silver eggs. They look like silver eggs. And that's nothing more, though. That aspect is just a sensory deprivation chamber, basically. And so they're given an IV and to run fluids through them. They have this massive syringe that they shoot up their nose. And then I see this white fluid. It goes into their brain and it looks a lot like a spider web. And it completely infuses their brain in this material. Very, very synthetic material. And then there's something that's placed over their mouth, like a mask. Um, and something placed, it kind of looks like this. I don't know how to explain it. And then they're put into this very, 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 very deep sleep, almost like they're put into almost a comatose state, okay? Which turns into them being almost like they're living a life, like it really feels like they're living a life. And someone told me earlier, well, how do you know that people from that future are not here and experiencing this right now? I can't answer that. I don't know. I personally don't think that is the case. Uh, Sorry about that. I don't know what's going on there. Yeah, okay. So they're trying to basically live these lives, but they're not really lives. So during the time that they're in these pods or chambers, their brains are scanned and their deepest, most profound fears are determined. And as a result, they may start off being in a paradise as promised. But what ends up happening is that they run into a situation where they are now completely immersed into whatever their deepest fear is. And I saw people being in coffins underground for what felt like weeks on end. I saw people working in slave labor camps. I saw people being eaten by animals, wore really nasty things and worse that I'm not going to get into. Fighting with monsters and dragons. I saw these hideous monsters attacking people. And it would like reoccur too. So they would face this situation over and over. And so that paradise dissipates, right? And it's especially extreme when it's known that a person committed a crime in the underground city society. That criminal is then sentenced to one of these pods. But for the most part, only a handful of people actually reside in these true paradises that they claim. Most end up living a nightmare in these situations. And that's why these are so evil and so dark. And it's hard for me to even talk about. Um, but yeah. So let's just hope it never comes to pass. Let's just say that. But it's interesting about the underground city being Denver Airport being one of these places where there's presumed to be an underground city, and that could be like a future capital that we must consider. Anyway, let's just move on real quickly to part two, which is pretty short. I'm gonna have to go somewhere soon. Um, so the Knights Templar, um, these knights are a reincarnation or an incarnation of those people from the Crystal Garden. Remember that I discussed that when Osiris came and attacked, they went to the cave and they basically put themselves in suspended animation and sort of went about the cosmos doing various tasks. Um, some of them, you know, harvesting mind energy to help Lilith recover from her mental spell. Others are incarnating in different worlds for various purposes to try to understand what's happening. And some have incarnated in the 1300s in medieval Europe for a very specific reason. And that being um, that during that time, so remember if you've been following my videos, that when the crystal tree, that energy was projected towards the earth from their dimension, it didn't just project itself in a linear fashion in one specific time. Those frequencies embedded themselves in dozens of time periods throughout the earth, and a huge influx of energy came to the early 1300s in France, which is where the Knights Templar incarnated on purpose from the original Crystal Garden, being the giants. They came there for what? To look for the Holy Grail. Remember, Jacques de Molay was their leader, just like he was their leader in the Crystal Garden too. He was the head there, and he's the head here. So, what is the Holy Grail? It is not a physical object. What they were there to do was to internalize the manifestation of that crystalline energy and basically hold it within themselves. And the interpretation I received was that the the Holy Grail was a eternal flame of wisdom, and that is what that sort of frequency that was beamed on the earth at that time. And so energetically what they were doing was holding and harvesting that energy back into their bodies, into their cells, into their DNA, so that they can take it back. And once they basically awaken in their original bodies, they have now a better chance of now going back in time and correcting the fall of the Crystal Garden. So it's basically for self-empowerment is what is going on. And that's what the Holy Grail was. And that is why they were treated the way they were treated and horribly, horribly died in the worst way I could ever imagine. And that has everything to do with Osiris knowing who they were and why they were there. And as a result, it's sad because he attempted through the use of torture to extract that energy from them by using the church as his proxy, because he is the leader of the Catholic Church, Osiris is. Not Jesus, sorry. It's Osiris the lizard who is the leader of the Catholic Church. So what happened? He tried to destroy their souls so that they couldn't contain that energy. But he doesn't realize how powerful the soul is. He didn't destroy it, and they took it back with them, back to their original bodies. And when they awaken, they will be part of this restoration process that will return their crystal garden to its original glory, and then our earth will move on to the new earth.